with that said, as we get up for our second panel discussion, let's carry forward for the idea of transformation. Our next panelist is Mr. Sandeep Gupta, Mr. Dhaval Mankar, Bimal Puri, and Amit Sood, the moderator for the panel, who will share the strategies to accelerate the digitization in manufacturing plants. Like, how do you bridge the gap between your vision and your reality? Like, how do you start this journey, towards a digital tomorrow? So just to let you know, Sandeep is actually the Chief Digital and Information Officer at Clean India Limited. In his current mandate, he leads the IT and digital function. Prior to that, he has worked with Kenny, where he led the Digital Center of Excellence with significant experience in formulating digital strategy and achieving tangible saving through automation, IT, sourcing, and offshoring. Our next panelist is Mr. Dhaval. He is a Chief Information Officer at Havmore Ice Cream, and in his current mandate, he is driving digitization initiative focusing on process automation, process simplification, TAT reduction, and productivity. He carries more than 30 years of diverse experience in managing IT and digital transformation. Bimal is the Senior Vice President and CIO at SRF Limited, and he covers the fluorochemical and technical textile business. He carries more than 26 years of experience in chemical and textile industries, spearheading digital transformation, automation, and robotization in manufacturing. And finally, our moderator of the panel, Mr. Amit Sood, is the Director of Global Business Solution, Vertical at Whirlpool Global Technology and Engineering Center. Amit is responsible for managing strategy and team focused on digital transformation of enterprises in areas of manufacturing, supply chain, procurement, and more. He carries more than 18 years of experience in the field of consumer durables. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Devashri, and a warm good afternoon to all. It's a pleasure to be getting the opportunity to moderate such a key topic on how can we accelerate the digitization in the manufacturing plant, right? And especially this topic is the need of the hour because of our Indian manufacturing sector, which is comprised of large, medium, and small as well, right? And I think we emphasized earlier that the large manufacturing sectors are moving ahead, but still there is a long way for the medium and small to catch up with this. So as Devashri said, I'm Amit. I'm a director at Whirlpool GTech, and I don't think so a company like Whirlpool needs introduction. Probably every one of you has had a Whirlpool appliance at your home at some point of time. But to cover, Whirlpool GTech is the largest tech center outside of India for Whirlpool. We have 900 engineers strong working on various platform digital technologies working on from Pune, right? So with that introduction, I think let's get started for today's discussion. So to kind of open the discussion up, I think, and this is a question to maybe all the panelists, to begin with, what are the common challenges manufacturers are facing when implementing digitization strategies, right? And maybe in your own experience, how can this be overcome? So maybe I'll pass on the baton to maybe Dhaval to maybe start off the conversation on his own experience, right? So over to you, Dhaval.
Okay. Thank you, Amit. The biggest challenge I would say is the resistance to the change. It's not only applicable to the manufacturing setup only, but across the organization, the resistance to change, and people are doing happy what they've been doing, and especially you will have a lot of old people in the manufacturing setup, and they are very much comfortable what they've been doing for years. So nobody is there to challenge the status quo. So that's one of the major challenge. And the other mistake a lot of organizations do is like treating digitalization project as an IT project. Especially in case of manufacturing, it needs to be driven by the manufacturing or the shop floor. I mean, we had our own implementation for some pilot projects for the IoT, which was ultimately driven by manufacturing to go ahead. Although we initiated as an enabler and we convinced them to move ahead, but then it has to be owned by business. And I mean, how do you overcome the challenges? Is like you need to answer what's in there for me question to everybody. And it's like once you start experiencing the results, I mean, our own experience says that it backfires on IT, that people will keep coming with newer and newer demand. So that's it.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, I could resonate very clearly with that resistance to change thing, right? I think change is the constant.
Yeah,
constant, but still-
yeah, and one of the speaker I think mentioned about the POC to scale up. I mean, same way POC can be used to fail fast. I mean, the other terminology.
Yeah. Thanks, Dhaval. So, Mr. Puri, maybe if you could share your experience on these challenges.
Sure, Amit. I think to me, if I see holistically, the major challenge is that whenever we talk about a transformation, we actually talk about the incremental changes. Because transformational basically is a journey which transforms the way we work. So I think the only challenge is that when we do upstream planning and conceptualization of any transformational journey, so we have to see end to end. So generally what people do POCs, people try to do something that is okay to just prove a concept to the team who is on the shop floor to make them understand that it works. But I think today everyone, whether they are at their home or their travel or their office, they're all digital basically. They do everything digital. So like if you ask me today, the government organizations are more digitally transformed in their working than a private organization, because we don't talk about experience or a transformation as a journey. So I think the biggest challenge which I personally feel is that it has to be a transformational thought process which is required when we do upstream planning, and from you can get a business benefit or outcome on the return on investment what we do, because otherwise I think if we keep doing the same thing in just a different way, in a small way, I think that will become a challenging to take journey forward in the next project or next. So I think the biggest thing is that our upstream has to be thought process has to be in a transformational way, not in an incremental way.
Well said, well said. Yeah, no, I agree. I think there is always a narrow focus to begin with, and then we kind of miss out on how to scale it up, right? And that's why it's more important to think transformative than incremental. Thanks, Mr. Puri. And then over to you, Sandeep. What are your views on this?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And, I actually, what Dhaval and Bimal had said, I mean, these are some of the practical challenges, but I like to add 2 or 3, challenges which I have seen. See, one of the things is that we all have limited budget. So the challenge always is, and that's unfortunate, right, Amit? I mean, everyone has a limited budget, but then we will have to prioritize things. And then how do we prioritize? I want to do automation. I want to do digital twin. I want to do metaverse. I want to do all of these, technology wise as well as business wise. So the challenge always is that unless and until you have a very clear value prioritization framework, you will always struggle. And by value prioritization framework, I mean is, you need to have your KPIs defined that whenever you do a digital projects, is it impacting your volume? Is it impacting your cost? Is it impacting your safety? And that has to be aligned with the top management. Okay, I am doing project X. This is the KPI I will move. It very well helps you secure that budget and prioritize it as well. So one is you need to be very clear on the value which a digital project generates. Number 2, if I can highlight, is once you start this project, you straight away want to jump into implementation, but you soon realize that your data is all over the place. And it's not just the technology part of the data. You can very well create the data lake and, you can have the master data and all of that element. The data owners, what we realize is that if you don't identify the owners, nobody will have the master data. Everyone will have their own set of data. And ultimately, with the cloud cost rising, they will create multiple, pipelines, and that will escalate your cloud cost as well. So need to have a very clear data strategy once you start any of your projects. So these are, quick couple of thoughts on the challenges which I had.
Well said, well said. No, I was smiling the moment you said limited budget, right? I think all of us know that familiar feeling, right? So yeah, definitely all very valid points. And again, from my perspective, I also feel there is this burden of legacy systems and processes, right? Which again kind of connects back to all these things. The point that Mr. Puri made about the end-to-end transformation, the point about the budget. the legacy systems and processes often comes in the way because there's a huge turnover cost required, which often deteriorates to look at investing at a large level versus focusing on small solutions. So very well said. So thanks. So to move the panel, to move the discussion forward, maybe I'll probably target this to Sandeep. You are CIO at KN India. Could you share an example of a successful strategy implemented in your manufacturing plant that kind of significantly accelerate digitization? And I'm sure being in the ONG sector, there could be a very good example of that. So Sandeep, would you like to share?
Sure, Amit. Amit, again, see, if we think from a strategy perspective, it can be across different elements of digital. It can be from a project perspective. We can speak from a process perspective. We can even speak from a procurement perspective in terms of leveraging startups, etc., which we heard the other panel. Now, if you ask me from an overall strategy perspective, what has worked from a digitalization perspective, I think one strategy which has worked is show the result to the relevant group and show them that how it works. That is the only way to create the adoption framework. And I'll give you 3 examples and different groups of how we have done it. With the operations group, ours is an upstream oil and gas organization. So, it is always, and I think Dhaval was telling, it is always that inhibition. We know this enough. What will you guys come and tell us? We have been doing this for 100 years now. So, then how do you prove that? The key thing is for us, what worked was advanced process controller. So we implemented APCs. It worked on one of the lifts which we have. We showed the benefits. Now it is used across our operations. That is, extensively used across the last 2 or 3 years. That was from an operation perspective. Similarly, kind of this movement came in the HSE side of it. In last November, we started piloting AI-based safety surveillance, which is basically we use our existing CCTV cameras and somebody is not wearing a hat. So immediately an observation comes, goes to the HSE manager, flagged off that, that he or she can actually call that person and say, there is a violation which is happening. Then the security realized the power of digitalization and using the existing cameras. And now they are a proponent of digitalization. Finally, from an employee perspective, as simple as a paperless office, we were actually submitting some of our bills in a paper-based, some of our tax, some of our investment savings, etc. That is all paperless. So this is digitization, not digitalization, if I would say. But then again, once people realize that there are benefits, they immediately adopt to that.
Oh, very well said. I think kind of rewarding and kind of recognizing the positives. I think that's a good way to reinforce this behavior. And that will kind of feed in the success in the strategy implemented. And I think definitely employees are the heart of every organization. So I think if they can see what is in it for them, I think they will be joining hands for a successful strategy. Thanks, Sandeep. That's very nice example shared by you. Okay. So moving on to Dhaval, you are VP IT at Have More Ice Cream. By the way, I love the name, right? Have More Ice Cream. It just calls you to eat more. Could you highlight a key area within Have More Ice Creams that experienced remarkable improvements through implementation of digitization strategies? And could you maybe share light on what were some of the strategies that were employed to achieve those results?
Okay, thank you. So I would add on to what Sandeep was saying, digital transformation will come later. First, we need to start digitizing the data. So even if you are taking steps towards digitization, it's the most welcome step. And then, he mentioned about showing the results. So, and I think Bimal also mentioned about the ways of working. So we also have adopted that practice of challenging status quo and discovering the new ways of working, what we call is new wow. So that's a new ways of working. And that's how quite a few processes have been revamped, revisited, and simplified to make things better, especially out of manufacturing on the sales front end side. We have so many processes which have been simplified, which is making life easier for sales folks. And all these processes are completely paperless. There is no paper movement happening. All our internal approval processes, be it manufacturing or head offices, everything is happening on portal through a workflow portal. If I talk about manufacturing setups specifically, we have barcode-based dispatch system, which ensures that your physically dispatched batch vis-a-vis invoiced batch are the same. Then we have also started projects on measuring operating efficiency by connecting IoT sensors on the lines. So again, you need to start small. You can't have big bang approach because people are not aware. People have apprehensions about technology. So we did a very small project with 2 lines in 2020, 21. After seeing the results, it has been scaled up to about 8 lines. And the calculations have been done to justify the ROI. So even if I can improve the efficiency by 2% or so, it gives the payback immediately. And then people have been using now since a year because it gives you a lot of insight in terms of the losses which are happening, the unplanned downtime which is happening, and recurring unplanned downtime analysis is also helping fixing the problem permanently. And one more example, I mean, we have daily quality index for all the ice cream products which are getting manufactured, which was an Excel based process earlier, which is completely digitized on a portal which measures about 4 quantitative and 4 qualitative parameters. And based on that analysis, also people are able to identify the problems and fix the issues. So no doubt, I mean, once people start experiencing the results, it pays back. And one more example, I will not take more time. The MRP, I mean, is more critical for the business like ours, where it's all demand driven and there's no fixed planning. After 1.5 years of effort, we have been able to put up the MRP in place now through SAP, which generates thousands of hundreds of purchase requests for the material planning, which was all manual task. So, I mean, there are not many examples in terms of digitizing the process, but these are few major ones which has changed the life at manufacturing setup.
So great examples, by the way. And again,
and one more point is, I mean, all these things needs to be driven by top. Then only there's a short success. I mean, it needs to be owned by function heads, and I mean, we discussed those things.
Yeah, we touched upon it, right? I think it's not an IT initiative; it has to be a functional initiative, and you were the one who said that. So I think I can relate very well to the digitization piece, right? And again, just to share Whirlpool's perspective, I think currently there's a huge focus on converting our entire plant layouts, which traditionally were in the AutoCAD are the 2D layouts, by using 3D scans and all, make them into 3D assets, and then kind of implementing it into kind of using those 3D assets for manufacturing simulations, which can probably serve as foundations for digital twin also, right? So at the end of the day, the first step, I think, for every one of us is to begin with digitization, which is painfully long, but also foundational in nature to get long-term results. Okay, great. Thanks, Dhaval. So with that, I want to direct the next question to Bimal. So Bimal, you are a SVP and CIO at SRF Chemicals, and what were some of the steps that you took to identify the areas that could benefit the most from digitization, right? And priority, we talked about priority. How did you go about prioritizing which areas to nail down first?
Basically, if we see in the entire manufacturing process, the biggest area is your manufacturing, because you are a manufacturing organization. So manufacturing and a supply chain always gets a priority to do anything, because that gives you more return on the investment, first of all. And we get a direct benefit and a quantifiable benefit. So we generally prioritize based on what we actually do. That is what is the manufacturing and handling a big supply chain. So these are the 2 areas which we identified and we have been working. And it's not only a digital twin, we have been working in the manufacturing, but we are also working on a digital twin in a supply chain. So kind of a control tower which we can have, which will have entire SNOP integration and a visibility, a red flag to the buyer or a logistics guy, where things are getting stuck when he comes and open up his system in the morning. So, but yes, the important is that we need to cover the entire supply chain, which is a critical piece, and we can't work in a silos, because silo breaks the communication channel. between the two functions, which is there. So yes, priorities towards, and the major benefit to in my past experience also, I worked with various Fortune 500 companies earlier also. So where I think the entire ecosystem is working towards the supply chain integration. So then in that sense, the manufacturing become one of the subset of the supply chain. So that's a priority way. So manufacturing and the supply chain is a priority.
Thanks. And yeah, I agree. I think the kind of results that you see or the ROIs that you see are very tangible, right? In manufacturing and supply chain. So it makes sense to start with those areas from a digitization perspective. Thank you. So kind of looking at the time, maybe one last question, which I open it to all. And we touched upon it at the beginning, right? It's a change. So change management is very critical to a successful digitization, right? And how do you go about ensuring smooth adoption and acceptance of this among employees? Because we all kind of touched upon it briefly in each of the questions, but what could be maybe successful ways of smooth adoption and acceptance within the employees for this? So maybe I'll direct this to Sandeep.
Yeah. So I think from an employee perspective, you have to be very strong on the reward recognition and the communication part of it. That has to be very strong. What we specifically do at Kane is that whenever we implement a digital initiative, there is a mail which goes out across the entire organization, thanking the team and showing the impact, etc. That is from a perspective of recognition and the communication. But at the same time, we have also rejigged our entire roles as well. So there is specific hierarchy for digital roles, digital architect, digital this, and then there is a compensation and rewards also associated with these roles. So we have also looked into our entire structure, how we can orient it towards digital, and there is awards and rewards associated along with the digital. So again, I'm back to double point. It has to be a top down in order to make all those changes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sandeep. Well said. I think, yeah, motivation serves well, right? Again, if they see that they are getting recognized for the right behaviors, I think that makes a huge difference. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Dhaval, what are your views on this?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the same thing. I mean, any larger project needs to be specifically recognized, like we did SAP Greenfield implementation. The entire team which participated were recognized with the certification and the cash award. And the other top-down approach is like we have also tweaked our KRA or KPI system. So all the projects are also part of yearly KPI with some weightage for all the functional, not only IT perspective. So there is a shared ownership and people are serious about the IT initiative which they want to take. And for example, in our case, the deep freezers, the assets, which is the largest base outside the manufacturing. So all the sales team member, they have 10% weightage on scanning of assets. So each asset needs to be scanned at least once in a year, in a month. That's the kind of KPI they hold. So that's how the initiative is getting through.
Very well said. Shared ownership and KPIs, right, to monitor it at the right time. So that is something which is very important for all these things. Okay, all right. And Mr. Puri, what are your thoughts on this?
If you ask me on the change management, basically, I mean, technically, when we talk about reward and recognition, that is basically when an outcome comes. So that is always there to recognize people when an outcome has come. But my simple phenomena is when we do a project or we do implementations, we make the entire team part of the entire journey, because they have to actually learn the new way also. So like you will always have two sets of people. You will have young people and you will have people who have been there in the system for a long. So you both like, for young guys, you need not to tell because they actually want the new way to, like, they don't want to work on even a web-based application. They want to work on apps, okay, because they're app native guys. So it becomes very easy the way it's getting changed. For the people who are there for a long and for a change, we have to do a workshops for them. We have to co-create, rather, like I'll tell you, when you make them part of your upstream, again, why I'm repeating upstream is that the experience which they have actually get built into the system. So they feel proud that whatever the experience they have, the rules which they have created over a period of time to run a particular business get embedded in the digital workflows. They feel happy, so they automatically connected. So basically, making part of them as a part of a journey is very critical. And then definitely once the outcome is there, so because rewards and recognition comes primarily when the outcome comes. But the important is that the previous phases are very, very critical. So we have to actually see from a business angle how a business get benefited, and engagement required differently for people who are there for a longer period in the organization as a change management aspect. And I mean, younger people will get accommodated so very fast on these implementations. So you have to have a mix of both strategies. One is that involvement and reward and recognition.
Well said, very well said. Yeah, being part of the journey, and I can very well relate to it, right? I think bridging the gap between the young fresh blood and the experienced pros who probably you can't be successful with just one of them, right? I think it always has to be a balance, because otherwise an initiative will fail. So making them part of the journey is very essential, and both of them require different approaches to, make them a key partner to some of the digitization initiative. Just to share my perspective, I think also one thing which is very important is visualization or vision, setting a vision. This is what you are doing today, and once this gets implemented, this is how your life is going to be, right? This is how easy your life is going to be, because at the end of the day, I think one of you said, what is in it for me? I think that's the biggest motivator for most of the people, because especially in the manufacturing setup, there's always a worry about losing a job. But most people fail to realize that there are efficiency gains and there are many other kind of advantages for implementing digital technology. So I think that vision, making the vision and making it clear to each and every employee is equally important to be successful in change management. So yeah, that's my perspective. Okay, I see Devarshi come on the screen, so probably giving me the last minute flag, but yeah, so that was my last question. So just to close this discussion, a very nice discussion. I certainly learned a lot, and I also was very happy to see there's a lot of things that I can relate to, right, with my own journey and my own experience at Whirlpool. A lot of best practices and tips, which I'm certainly gonna take back with me, and I'm sure the participants are also going to immensely benefit from. And definitely, I would like to thank all three of you, Sandeep, Dhaval, Mr. Bimal, for your valuable time. And it was great to host this and moderate this discussion. Back to you, Devarshi.
My pleasure.
Amit, thank you so much. I think the way you moderated, you brought out the best in all the three speakers. You minded so well. I have to tell you, this was a legit conversation. Okay, it was not a Q&A, it was a conversation. And I believe every one of the attendees would agree. The later part, at least the insights, especially the leadership insights that we got, how to bring everyone together, how to make people realize what's in it for them, or, I think those are so fantastic for starters, because these guys are now, they'll be growing the business. They have to get people together. So I think one of the finest insights is something that we've got. I cannot thank all of you enough, Dhavalji, Bimalji, and Sandeepji. Amit, thank you all for sparing time coming here and for this valuable panel discussion. Yes.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.